A black belt martial artist with 3 international titles decided to show off in front of Buckingham Palace by kicking a royal guard in the face. What happened next made everyone reassess everything they thought they knew about strength. What he thought would be a viral moment that proved his superiority over a ceremonial statue turned into something completely different. The guard didn't fall, didn't flinch, and didn't break his military posture. Instead, what happened next revealed the true difference between tournament fighting and real combat training. The crowd that gathered expecting to see a guard humiliated witnessed something they never could have imagined. But to understand how this moment unfolded, we need to step back and examine the man who threw that kick. Before we continue, if you're enjoying stories that challenge perceptions and reveal deeper truths, feel free to give this video a like. Consider subscribing for more thoughtful content, and I'd love to know where you're watching from. Let me know in the comments below. Chen stood at the center of his London hotel suite, surrounded by camera equipment and matching black training jackets worn by his crew. At 32, he commanded an empire built on precision kicks and tournament dominance. 3 international martial arts titles hung on his apartment wall back in Los Angeles, alongside framed screenshots showing his follower count climbing past 4 million. His brand, Untouchable Unstoppable, had generated enough sponsorship money to fund constant travel and content creation across 6 countries in the past year alone. The algorithm had been kind to Chen in the beginning, when his spinning kicks and acrobatic combinations could still generate millions of views with simple training footage. Tournament victories against respected opponents created a foundation of credibility that attracted serious martial arts enthusiasts, alongside casual viewers seeking spectacular entertainment. His early videos featured controlled demonstrations of technique and respectful interactions with other fighters. Success measured in views and engagement rates gradually shifted his content strategy toward more dramatic presentations. Recent months had brought troubling trends. Videos that once reached 10 million views now struggled to break 5 million. The social media ecosystem rewarded spectacle above substance-creating incentives that drove Chen toward increasingly risky confrontations. His management team presented declining numbers while competitor channels gained ground with increasingly outrageous stunts. The pressure to maintain relevance pushed Chen toward content that blurred traditional boundaries of martial arts demonstration. His entourage had evolved from training partners into location scouts who identified opportunities for public demonstrations of superiority. They carried matching equipment bags and wore identical team jackets while filming Chen's interactions with unsuspecting targets. Street performers, security guards, and amateur fighters became unwilling participants in content designed to showcase Chen's dominance over ordinary people. These encounters generated the engagement spikes that his traditional training videos could no longer achieve. Platform algorithms amplified content that provoked strong emotional responses regardless of ethical considerations. His team tracked metrics that showed controversial interactions outperformed respectful demonstrations by significant margins. The financial success of his more aggressive content validated a worldview where entertainment value justified crossing traditional boundaries of consent and respect. Buckingham Palace represented the ultimate stage for Chen's brand of disruptive content creation. The location offered international recognition, cultural significance, and the perfect backdrop for demonstrating his philosophy of martial arts superiority over traditional authority figures. His crew had spent 2 days scouting optimal camera angles and identifying the guard positions that would provide the most dramatic visual contrast. Chen saw the opportunity to create content that would cement his reputation while showcasing American martial arts dominance over British ceremonial tradition. Standing before the palace gates, Chen addressed his cameras with confidence born from years of unchallenged success. "These guards are trained for ceremony, not combat," he declared while adjusting his signature black training jacket. "They stand still because they lack the speed and skill to respond to real martial arts technique. Today, I'm going to demonstrate the difference between ceremonial weakness and tournament-proven strength." His words revealed a mindset shaped entirely by competition metrics rather than real-world understanding of military service and professional duty. The cameras rolled as tourists began gathering around Chen's crew, creating the audience atmosphere that his content required. His team positioned themselves to capture multiple angles, while Chen performed warm-up movements designed to build anticipation. The crowd grew larger as word spread through the tourist area that something interesting was about to happen. Chen interpreted their attention as validation of his approach and confirmation that this moment would generate the viral success his channel desperately needed. His approach toward the motionless royal guard carried the confidence of a man who had never encountered opposition that could match his tournament-tested abilities. Years of defeating skilled opponents in controlled environments had created an unshakable belief in his physical superiority over anyone who had not proven themselves in formal competition. The guard's stillness appeared to confirm Chen's assumptions about ceremonial duties and the limitations of traditional military bearing. But as Chen prepared to deliver his signature spinning heel kick, he saw only stillness where something far more dangerous waited beneath the surface. William Harrington stood motionless in his red tunic and bearskin hat, while Chen prepared his attack, but the ceremonial uniform concealed a military record that would have given the martial artist serious pause. Behind the polished brass buttons and pristine fabric stood a soldier whose service jacket read like a catalog of modern warfare's most demanding assignments. 8 years of active duty had taken Harrington through conflicts that tested human endurance far beyond anything Chen had experienced in tournament competition. The Special Reconnaissance Regiment had recruited Harrington directly from basic infantry training after instructors noticed his exceptional performance under pressure and natural ability to remain calm during chaotic situations. His first deployment to Afghanistan came when roadside bombs and sniper attacks created daily lessons in survival that no martial arts academy could replicate. 3 separate tours in the Afghan theater taught him that the soldiers who lived longest were those who moved with deliberate purpose rather than flashy technique. Covert operations in Syria had refined Harrington's understanding of controlled violence and strategic patience. His unit specialized in intelligence-gathering missions where premature action could compromise entire operations and cost multiple lives. Success in that environment required the ability to absorb stress and maintain composure while hostile forces operated nearby. Harrington learned to channel adrenaline into focused awareness rather than reactive movement. His current assignment to the Queen's Guard rotation represented active military duty rather than ceremonial retirement from combat service. The Ministry of Defense rotated experienced soldiers through these prestigious positions as recognition for exceptional service records. Harrington's posting came after his unit returned from their final Middle East deployment, and his commanding officers selected him based on his demonstrated ability to maintain discipline under extreme pressure. Distinguished service commendations from quiet medal ceremonies reflected achievements that would never appear on social media feeds or tournament highlight reels. The Special Reconnaissance Regiment training that shaped Harrington's responses operated according to principles that competitive martial arts never addressed. Where tournament fighting rewarded explosive technique and visible dominance, military doctrine emphasized mission completion and survival through controlled restraint. His muscle memory contained defensive patterns developed through scenarios where failure meant death for entire squads. These instincts prioritized containment over the spectacular counters that competition rewarded. Harrington's battlefield experience had taught him to read approaching threats through subtle behavioral cues that civilian training rarely covered. Enemy fighters who survived long enough to pose serious danger rarely announced their intentions through obvious preparations. His eyes tracked Chen's warming movements with the detached assessment of someone who had faced opponents motivated by genuine homicidal intent rather than social media metrics. The patience that kept Harrington motionless at his post reflected conditioning developed through countless hours of observation duty, where movement could reveal position to enemy forces. Military snipers and reconnaissance specialists learned to maintain physical stillness for extended periods while remaining mentally alert for genuine threats. This training created soldiers who could distinguish between actual danger and theatrical performance. The tourists and cameras that surrounded the confrontation expected to witness a ceremonial guard overwhelmed by superior martial arts technique. Instead, they would observe something that defied their assumptions about military service and the nature of professional combat training. Harrington's unwavering stance demonstrated that true strength often operates beneath unassuming surfaces, and that the loudest displays of force rarely indicate the most dangerous capabilities. What they were about to witness would force Chen to confront the fundamental difference between fighting for trophies and training for survival. The guard's response would carry the weight of military discipline that had been tested under conditions where failure carried consequences far beyond damaged pride or lost social media followers. Chen's confidence in his tournament-proven abilities was about to meet something entirely different from anything he had encountered in competition. Chen's spinning heel kick carried every technique he had perfected through years of tournament competition, as his foot connected with Harrington's jaw in a motion designed to generate maximum visual impact for the cameras surrounding them. The strike landed with an audible crack that sent Harrington's bearskin cap flying in a perfect arc through the London air. His head snapped to the side and a thin line of blood appeared at his temple, but his feet remained planted in perfect military stance as his core muscles absorbed and distributed the force across muscle groups conditioned through years of physical training protocols designed for actual combat situations. Onlookers gasped, as many assumed the kick would have been devastating to anyone else, but Harrington's response unfolded with methodical precision that operated according to principles Chen had never encountered in competitive martial arts. The guard's body responded with automatic efficiency that prioritized mission completion over personal retaliation, while his mind processed the attack through training that emphasized controlled responses rather than spectacular counters. For 2 seconds, the scene held in perfect silence as the cap completed its descent to the pavement. Chen followed his initial strike with a rapid combination of punches and kicks that had overwhelmed opponents in tournament settings but now met defensive positioning that confused his competition-trained instincts. Harrington's footwork shifted almost imperceptibly as he maintained his assigned post while creating defensive angles that redirected Chen's attacks without abandoning his ceremonial duties. Each movement demonstrated textbook military defensive doctrine that prioritized control and containment rather than the explosive exchanges that tournament fighting rewarded with points and crowd approval. The guard's restraint became a tactical weapon as he allowed Chen to overextend his attacks while maintaining perfect defensive geometry that neutralized each strike without escalation. Harrington's military training had taught him that genuine threats rarely announce themselves through elaborate warming movements, and that sustained aggression often revealed an opponent's limitations more effectively than immediate counterattack. His patient response drew Chen into increasingly desperate attempts to generate the dramatic reaction his cameras needed. Chen's confident aggression gradually transformed into visible confusion as none of his proven techniques created the expected results. Tournament victories had conditioned him to expect certain responses from opponents who operated according to competitive fighting principles. But Harrington's reactions followed military doctrine that prioritized different objectives entirely. The martial artist found himself fighting someone who refused to engage according to the rules that had governed every previous confrontation in his career. Harrington's eventual takedown demonstrated military control techniques that used Chen's momentum against him with surgical precision. As Chen launched another high kick, the guard caught his leg with practiced efficiency and used a decisive motion to take the martial artist to the ground. Harrington placed one knee on Chen's sternum to immobilize him without causing injury. The positioning calculated to control without escalation. His hands moved with the same methodical precision he had maintained throughout the encounter, while ensuring that his own actions remained within the bounds of appropriate defensive response. The takedown itself lasted only seconds, but revealed years of training designed for situations where failure meant life or death consequences rather than lost tournament matches. Chen found himself on the ground not through spectacular counterattack, but through disciplined technique applied with overwhelming competence that left no room for recovery or continued aggression. The cameras that were meant to capture his dominance over a ceremonial guard instead recorded his complete neutralization by someone who operated according to combat principles that made tournament success irrelevant. The viral moment Chen had envisioned became an education in how real combat training operated under principles that competitive martial arts never addressed. His years of tournament success had prepared him to face opponents who shared his objectives and operated within similar rule structures, but provided no foundation for confronting someone whose training emphasized mission completion over personal victory. The crowd stood in stunned silence as tourists processed what they had witnessed, their phones still recording a scene that defied every assumption they had brought to this moment. But their confusion was about to be addressed by someone whose arrival would transform this street confrontation into something far more significant. Colonel James Thornton pushed through the gathering crowd with the measured stride of someone accustomed to command authority, as his dress uniform displayed the insignia of 30 years' service with the Royal Marines. His bearing commanded immediate respect from both the confused martial artist still processing his failure and the tourists who had witnessed something beyond their understanding. Thornton's trained eye immediately assessed the situation with the rapid evaluation skills that senior officers developed through decades of managing complex military operations. The colonel recognized the controlled precision in Harrington's response as unmistakable evidence of elite military conditioning that operated according to principles civilian observers rarely encountered. Years of reviewing after-action reports and evaluating soldier performance had taught Thornton to distinguish between lucky defensive reactions and the systematic application of professional combat training. Harrington's maintained posture despite the unprovoked assault demonstrated the kind of discipline that military academies spent years developing in their most promising candidates. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thornton announced in a voice that carried the authority of command across the gathered crowd, "what you have witnessed here demonstrates something most people don't understand about these positions. Guard Harrington is an active duty soldier rotated through ceremonial duties. These assignments are given to proven soldiers with extensive military experience, including combat deployments." His words created immediate shifts in the crowd's perception as tourists began reassessing what they had observed through this new framework of understanding. The colonel's explanation systematically dismantled the myth of decorative soldiers that popular culture had created around ceremonial military positions. "Every soldier you see in these positions has earned their placement through demonstrated excellence in military service," he continued while gesturing toward Harrington, who remained at attention despite the assault he had endured. Guard Harrington served with the Special Reconnaissance Regiment through multiple deployments where his life depended on exactly the kind of tactical restraint you just witnessed. Thornton addressed Chen directly with professional courtesy that carried unmistakable authority. "Mr. Chen, I understand you have achieved considerable success in competitive martial arts. Tournament fighting requires impressive skill and dedication that deserves recognition. However, military training operates according to different principles designed for different circumstances than competitive sport." His measured tone offered education rather than condemnation, while establishing clear boundaries about what had actually occurred. The colonel's presence brought institutional authority that elevated the confrontation beyond random street violence into something far more serious. Guard Harrington's response demonstrates tactical restraint rather than passive victimhood, he explained while maintaining eye contact with Chen. "Military personnel trained to neutralize threats while maintaining their assigned duties. What you attempted here was not a demonstration of martial arts superiority, but an assault on an active duty serviceman performing his duties." His military bearing commanded attention from both the martial artist and the surrounding crowd as Thornton reframed the entire encounter through the lens of professional military doctrine. The colonel's words carried the weight of military tradition and the authority of someone who had spent decades developing soldiers capable of controlled response under extreme pressure. His intervention established clear consequences while maintaining the educational framework that could transform this incident into genuine understanding rather than simple punishment. Guard Harrington's restraint prevented this situation from escalating into something far more serious for everyone involved, Thornton concluded with the firm but educational tone that effective military leaders use to correct serious mistakes. His intervention transformed what appeared to be random street confrontation into an opportunity for public education about the true nature of military service and the qualifications required for prestigious ceremonial assignments. The crowd's murmurs reflected their growing understanding that they had witnessed professional military competence rather than ceremonial weakness. But as Thornton's words settled over the gathered tourists, something deeper began shifting in their collective perception of what they had actually observed and recorded on their phones. The silence that followed Chen's takedown stretched across the tourist area as hundreds of phones captured the moment when confident aggression met disciplined restraint. Chen's posture and smirk dissolved completely as he processed what had just occurred, while Harrington maintained perfect military bearing despite the unprovoked assault. The crowd's excited chatter about seeing a guard challenged gave way to uncomfortable quiet as the reality of what they had witnessed began settling over the gathered tourists. Colonel Thornton's authoritative explanation transformed the crowd's understanding from entertainment spectacle to something far more serious. His words about Harrington's combat service and the true nature of ceremonial duties created immediate shifts in perception, as tourists realized they had watched someone assault a military veteran who was simply performing his professional duties. The phones that had captured the incident for social media sharing now held evidence of criminal behavior rather than amusing tourist content. Chen's crew members exchanged increasingly worried glances as the implications of their filmed assault became clear through the colonel's detailed explanation. Their matching black jackets and professional camera equipment suddenly appeared less like legitimate content creation tools and more like evidence of premeditated confrontation with active military personnel. The confident energy that had driven their location scouting and filming preparation evaporated as they realized their viral moment had transformed into potential criminal evidence documenting assault against a serviceman on duty. Chen's face showed growing recognition that his content strategy had led him into circumstances with consequences extending far beyond social media metrics or tournament standings. His confident declarations about ceremonial weakness now sounded like the words of someone who had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of his target. The martial artist's eyes searched for some escape from the situation as the full weight of his actions became apparent through the colonel's measured but authoritative words. A brief montage of faces in the crowd revealed the collective shift in mood as disapproval replaced excitement and phones slowly lowered from recording position. Tourists who had initially cheered Chen's flashy techniques began questioning what they had actually witnessed as details of Harrington's military service spread through the gathering. Conversations shifted from admiration for martial arts skill to concern about the appropriateness of attacking someone performing ceremonial duties. The legal implications became impossible to ignore as people realized their phones contained documentation of assault against an active duty serviceman performing official duties. What had seemed like harmless entertainment content now represented evidence in a potential criminal case that could destroy Chen's career and reputation. His team's professional filming equipment had captured multiple angles of criminal behavior rather than the viral success story they had planned to create. Harrington's continued professionalism despite the unprovoked assault earned him respect that Chen's years of flashy tournament victories had never generated. His calm maintenance of military bearing while absorbing attack after attack demonstrated genuine strength that impressed observers far more than spectacular kicks or acrobatic combinations ever could. The guard's disciplined response revealed character qualities that competitive martial arts success could not measure or develop. Security personnel arrived with professional efficiency that marked the clear transition from entertainment spectacle to formal legal proceedings. Their systematic approach to documenting the incident and securing witness statements signaled that Chen's actions had crossed the boundary between content creation and criminal behavior. The tourist area around Buckingham Palace transformed from casual filming location into active investigation site requiring official documentation. Chen's eventual admission to Colonel Thornton that he didn't understand what he was looking at marked the beginning of his transformation from arrogance to genuine recognition of his mistake. His words acknowledged the fundamental gap in his understanding between tournament competition and the reality of military service and professional duty. The statement represented the first crack in the worldview that had driven him to seek confrontation with someone he had completely misjudged. The crowd began dispersing with altered perspectives on both martial arts showmanship and military ceremonial roles that would influence how they viewed similar situations in the future. Their experience had educated them about the difference between performance and professional competence, while demonstrating how real strength often operates beneath unassuming surfaces. What Chen had intended as a demonstration of superiority had become an education in discipline and restraint for everyone present. But the consequences of his actions were only beginning to unfold as the wheels of formal legal proceedings prepared to address his assault on a representative of the Crown. The Crown Prosecution Service opened formal proceedings against Chen within 48 hours, as assault charges against active military personnel triggered automatic review protocols that treated his actions as offenses against the Crown itself rather than simple interpersonal violence. Legal specialists assigned to the case explained how attacking a serviceman performing ceremonial duties carried serious penalties under British law. Chen's viral stunt had unknowingly crossed into territory where the legal system applied enhanced protections for military personnel engaged in official functions. His international fighting career faced immediate jeopardy as news of the criminal charges spread through martial arts organizations and sponsorship networks that had invested heavily in his reputation. 3 major equipment sponsors suspended their contracts pending legal resolution, while tournament organizers began questioning whether Chen's conduct violated the professional standards expected of championship-level competitors. The financial foundation that supported his content creation empire started crumbling as brands distanced themselves from association with criminal behavior captured on multiple camera angles. Harrington's medical evaluation at a nearby hospital confirmed only superficial bruising and minor swelling that would heal completely within days. But the legal framework governing his assault operated independently of injury severity. Military medical personnel documented the physical evidence, while legal experts explained how British law protected servicemen from attack regardless of whether lasting damage occurred. The Crown Prosecution Service emphasized that Chen's actions constituted assault on a representative of royal authority rather than simple battery against an individual citizen. The incident report filed by investigating officers documented how Harrington's professional restraint had prevented escalation that could have resulted in far more serious criminal charges for Chen and his entire filming crew. Military analysts noted that different responses from the Guard could have justified additional charges, including threatening behavior near royal property and conspiracy to create public disturbance. Harrington's disciplined handling of the situation had actually limited Chen's legal exposure through measured professional response rather than aggressive retaliation. Legal proceedings revealed the systematic nature of Chen's content creation strategy as prosecutors examined his previous videos showing similar confrontational behavior with security personnel and public officials in multiple countries. Pattern evidence demonstrated premeditated approaches to generating viral content through boundary-crossing interactions rather than spontaneous martial arts demonstrations. The documentation painted a picture of calculated exploitation of public servants and authority figures for commercial social media purposes. Tournament organizations launched internal reviews of Chen's conduct as his undefeated competition record became overshadowed by criminal charges that called his character and professional judgment into serious question. International martial arts federations began examining whether his behavior violated ethical standards that govern championship competitors and whether criminal conviction would affect his eligibility for future sanctioned events. His competitive achievements faced potential suspension through conduct violations rather than ring defeats. Harrington returned to his ceremonial duties the following day, demonstrating the resilience and professionalism expected of military personnel who served in high-visibility positions requiring absolute reliability. His unchanged demeanor and perfect military bearing showed no lingering effects from the assault, while Chen remained confined to his hotel, dealing with legal consultations and career damage control. The contrast highlighted different approaches to handling adversity and professional challenges. The legal system's measured response mirrored Harrington's own disciplined restraint, as prosecutors applied appropriate consequences without pursuing excessive punishment that would serve no constructive purpose. Plea negotiations offered Chen opportunities for reduced sentences in exchange for public acknowledgement of wrongdoing and community service that could demonstrate genuine remorse rather than simple legal strategy. The approach emphasized rehabilitation and education rather than vindictive prosecution. Chen's eventual guilty plea acknowledged assault against Harrington while accepting community service requirements and mandatory anger management counseling designed to address the judgment failures that had led to the incident. The youth's sentence reflected judicial recognition of his cooperation while maintaining consequences serious enough to deter similar behavior from other social media personalities seeking dramatic content through confrontational tactics. But beyond the courtroom proceedings and career consequences, something deeper had emerged from this confrontation that would challenge fundamental assumptions about what strength actually means. The confrontation at Buckingham Palace became a masterclass in how genuine strength operates through principles that competitive martial arts rarely teaches or rewards. What followed in the hours after the incident would crystallize these lessons through a quiet conversation that neither man expected to have. Later that evening, Chen found himself face-to-face with Harrington in a small room at the police station where both men waited for paperwork to be completed. The martial artist's confidence had completely evaporated as the weight of his actions settled over him. "I screwed up," Chen admitted quietly while avoiding eye contact with the guard he had assaulted. "I didn't understand what I was looking at out there. I thought you were just standing there for show." Harrington's response carried no anger or vindictiveness despite the unprovoked attack he had endured. "When you've had IEDs detonate nearby and watched good soldiers maintain their positions under mortar fire," he said with measured calm, "someone throwing kicks becomes just another operational requirement to manage." His words revealed the vast gulf between tournament competition and the reality of military service, where life-threatening situations demanded controlled responses rather than spectacular demonstrations of force. The guard's explanation helped Chen understand that his restraint throughout the assault had not demonstrated weakness, but rather strength, so complete it required no validation through retaliation. Harrington had absorbed multiple strikes while maintaining his ceremonial duties because his training emphasized mission completion over personal satisfaction. His ability to neutralize the threat while protecting everyone involved, including Chen himself, represented tactical mastery that tournament fighting could never develop or measure. Chen's recognition of his fundamental mistake opened a pathway toward understanding strength as service to others rather than dominance over them. His tournament victories and social media following had created an illusion of superiority that crumbled when confronted with someone whose training served purposes beyond individual recognition. The martial artist began recognizing how his pursuit of viral fame had led him to assault a military veteran whose quiet professionalism deserved respect rather than attack. Harrington's willingness to explain rather than condemn demonstrated the same restraint he had shown during the actual confrontation. His measured words carried the authority of someone who had faced genuine danger while serving his country through multiple combat deployments. The conversation revealed how military discipline creates warriors who understand that true victory often requires sacrificing individual recognition for larger objectives that protect and serve others. The exchange between the two men illustrated how different forms of training create entirely different responses to challenging situations. Chen's competitive background had conditioned him to seek validation through visible dominance, while Harrington's military experience had taught him that genuine mastery expresses itself through wisdom rather than spectacular demonstrations of physical capability. Their conversation became a bridge between two worldviews that had collided outside Buckingham Palace. Both men emerged from their unexpected dialogue fundamentally changed by the encounter that had revealed their true characters under pressure. Chen faced the necessity of completely reconsidering his approach to martial arts and his understanding of what strength actually means. Harrington's quiet professionalism had earned validation from his superiors and the public, while providing education rather than simply delivering consequences to someone who had attacked him without provocation. The following morning, Harrington returned to his ceremonial post at Buckingham Palace, with his uniform restored to perfect condition and his bearing unchanged by the previous day's events. His presence at the palace gates demonstrated the resilience and reliability expected of military personnel who served in high-visibility positions requiring absolute consistency. Tourists who passed by saw only a motionless guard in ceremonial dress, but those who understood his story recognized something far more significant standing beneath that unassuming surface. The quiet return to duty marked the completion of a lesson that had begun with flashy aggression and ended with measured professionalism. What had started as one man's attempt to demonstrate superiority had become an education in how true strength operates when no one is watching, and how genuine warriors serve others through restraint rather than seeking validation through displays of force. The viral moment Chen had planned became something entirely different when genuine strength revealed itself through restraint rather than retaliation. This was a real assault on active-duty military personnel that resulted in criminal prosecution and demonstrated how completely social media metrics can distort understanding of what actual power looks like. Harrington's response throughout the entire confrontation showed that true mastery expresses itself through wisdom rather than spectacular demonstrations designed to impress observers. His ability to absorb attack while maintaining his duties revealed strength so complete it required no validation through retaliation. Have you ever mistaken stillness for weakness? Tell us in the comments what you would have done in this situation and where you're watching from. If you respect Guard Harrington's restraint and professionalism, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that challenge assumptions about strength and character. The next morning found Harrington back at his post outside Buckingham Palace, standing at perfect attention while tourists maintained respectful distance, having learned something profound about the quiet warriors who serve beneath unassuming surfaces.